Hello, everybody, and welcome again back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop, where we will have another amazing guest for you today, Sarah Quenette, a fulfillment and serenity coach. Sarah coaches women solopreneurs to have a peaceful and powerful life. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm really, really glad to be here.
And we're glad to have you here. I imagine that you're going to have some very amazing stories to share as well from our previous conversations. So before we dive into it, though, we do like to have an icebreaker on the show. And your question today is, which fictional character do you resonate with the most?
Hmm. Um, I immediately go to my favorite show. That's the first thing I'm thinking of, and it's This Is Us. It's a show that I really, really like, and there's a character that I love in that show. Well, I actually love all of them, but I really relate to Rendell's character. I feel like the the soul searching that he's doing in the show, and the how he navigates the responsibilities and the expectations and the of day-to-day life, and the really practical things, while also being on a journey of self-discovery that's really, really deep, and looking for answers within. And I just really relate to that duality, or yeah, really love that character.
I love that. I love that. Rendell from This Is Us. I love that. So before we get too much further into it, we do like to dive a little bit into the backgrounds of our guests. So why don't you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to be where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Well, I could go back to what I studied and everything and where it all started, but I think this is the quite common as the start of the story. I just studied something at school, and then a few years later decided that, I didn't really see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And there was a door that opened at that time. So I always start with this, but I realize now people see me through that first thing, because I've been telling that story with that first door for so long. But anyway, that first door was yoga. I had been practicing for a while, and I think it's not the yoga itself. It's not really, well, the practice did give me so much, but it was the beginning of a self discovery journey, actually. And that's why I was saying that I really relate to Rendell and This Is Us. Because I think it really was the first step for me to kind of start questioning myself and start, to get to know myself. That's when I actually realized, okay, I've been living my life not really asking myself the right questions, but really not really knowing myself. And I think that's how I realized it. So yeah, there was the physical approach at first, but it quickly became more about the spiritual and, self-awareness approach. Over the years, I decided to become a yoga teacher, started, leading people through that, trying to lead people through that journey with my yoga classes. But then at some point, I kind of felt a little bit like it was too little. And I was frustrated by the limited space I had in a 55-minute class to share what I wanted to share with people, and to actually help them you know get through that journey themselves. So I realized I wanted to be able to help people in a deeper and more long-term way. And I decided to become a coach, but I really did want to keep that spiritual approach that I had through yoga that really, really helped me. So I looked for a while where I could, find that approach with coaching, but still spirituality. And I ended up finding the Jay Shetty Certification School, where I had my certification. That was 3 years ago now. And yeah, so I've been coaching women ever since. And I think I just recently realized how it's important for me, and why it's important for me to work with women. And it's really because I think and especially women who are, you know, an entrepreneur role, whether it's they're solopreneurs, which is the more the majority of the people I work with, but also just leading roles, I guess, and trying to navigate this with being a woman and often a mom is something that is really, it's a lot, I think. And that's why but at the same time, women, in my opinion, have the power to really change the world around them. It's not, it's really about how, we influence, we impact the people around us. And I think as women, we're like the foundation so much, for the people around us, that I feel like if women were able to feel more fulfilled and more, then they can actually use that power that they have to change the world bit by bit. And I think this has come to me in the recent years, really understanding that that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's why it's how I ended up here, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It's a very very inspiring story, and how you want to empower women to kind of step into themselves and really have that ripple effect to make the world a better place, right? Just going back into your story a little bit, I know that you said that you were sort of trying something out and you wanted to be able to continue on that path. Do you think there was any defining moment that really led you to make that decision to make the change?
You mean the change to stop what I was doing at first and start, teaching yoga and then everything? There's a moment where I realized that I was not having the impact that I wanted to have. And just saying it right now, it kind of relates to the fact that I was saying, women have the power to impact so much around them. But at that time, I was working in a big firm, working with, like, okay, so I was actually working in sales planning. So I was planning sales for a big group, international group. And I felt like just inside the organization, I already felt like what I was doing had very little impact. We were producing all of those reports and having those meetings and doing all of this and having all of those deadlines. And then at the end of the month, I was like, okay, but why did we do all of this for? I felt like there was some sense of disconnection within the organization between what I was doing and what actually ended up being productive. Within the organization, I already felt that sense of disconnection. And then when I actually thought of it with a broader perspective in my life, it made no sense. At some point, it kind of just stopped making sense for me. And I felt like, okay, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I could probably have done it for a few years, more. But I felt like, okay, I'm just beginning now. And I actually started working really young. And, in France, we have to work very long time to actually have some decent retirement. So I just, I just saw myself doing that for years and years and years. And I kind of just felt like there was no sense of purpose, no sense of fulfillment. And I just felt like I could just see myself a few years later, completely depressed and disconnected from myself. So I just said, okay, I think I need to stop now. Um, Down the road, it's just going to get worse.
Very true. I mean, when there is that disconnect, and sometimes, we don't see the value in what we're doing, or maybe it's not aligned with our values. So we need to, you know, even if it's a well-paying job or a, steady, safe job, we have to follow
Yeah.
what's in alignment with ourselves. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you had when you left that environment to first start out in your journey to yoga and then on to coaching?
I think the biggest challenge, and honestly, it's an ongoing challenge, I guess. It's just, it comes up in different forms or at different levels, different volumes, maybe. But the biggest challenge is to trust yourself and to kind of get to a point where you're able, maybe not completely turn it off, but quiet the outside noise that's telling you you're not good enough, you're not going to succeed, it's not going to work, you're not going to find clients, it's going to be hard, you're going to be broke, all of those things. And it's about finding that trust and that, you know, listening to that intuition and that inner voice that, says, okay, you decided to do that for a reason. You did the hardest part now. You made the decision. Now, just trust yourself and keep going one step at a time. And it's that balance between trusting yourself and finding ways to quiet down the noise, but also trusting that even though you don't have all the answers, things are gonna things are gonna work out. It's that trust in the universe that things are gonna align in order for things to work out. I think this is really for me the biggest challenge, and it's, as I said, it's an ongoing challenge that kind of comes back in different ways.
And would you say that maybe that's also one of the biggest hurdles or one of the biggest obstacles that's preventing a lot of women from going out and making their impact in the world?
Definitely. I think there's a lot to be said about how women approach this, whereas how men approach this. I think as women, there's and it's something that I've really observed around me. And I'm not making generality. Like, it's not to say men are like this and women are like this. Of course, it's much more nuanced than that. And, some men can definitely relate to what I'm saying right now, I'm guessing. And probably some women are going to be like, no, this is not, I do not identify at all. But I think a lot of women have that sense of responsibility and put a lot of pressure on themselves because they have families, because they have, because there's this expectation of what we're supposed to be doing to say, I'm succeeding in life. What goes into the box of, like, what allows you to say I'm successful in life. And I think a lot of women have that inner voice that says, if you follow your intuition, if you follow your desires, if you listen to yourself, if you put yourself first, then you're neglecting the responsibilities, or you're not fitting into that box. And so the noise becomes louder, and it gets more difficult to actually quiet that noise down and listen to yourself and trust yourself. So yeah, definitely, I think this is for sure one of the main hurdles for women when they want to pursue something that's a little different. Um, and they,
Okay. And when these women approach you, how do you start to work with them? What does that process sort of look like?
I always say, for me, it's the first and most important step whenever I start working with someone is to get some clarity. And for me, clarity comes with knowing yourself. So that's always where I start. Whatever they come to me with, it's always about, let's just, put everything on the table and try to organize what's in your head, just so that you have answers and you kind of start to understand yourself a little better. This for me is always going to be the first and most important step, I guess, in the journey of, building the life that you want to build. Because if you start without knowing yourself, it's it's like at some point down the road, you could probably, as I said, I could have probably gone on for a few years doing what I was doing. But a few years down the road, I would have probably been in a much worse state, and I would have actually understood that I was in the wrong place. And I think that's the risk. That's one of the risks if you don't do that, if you don't go through that process of, asking yourself the right questions to get to know yourself. Because then a few years later, you realize you've been going down a road that really doesn't align with your values or really doesn't make sense with, what's important for you or the life that you want to live. And you suddenly realize you've been leaving your life for other people's expectations and not listening to your own, aspirations, your own desires. And yeah, this is definitely the most important step.
And actually, what you brought up is very interesting because I think that what you're saying, and especially, in terms of just procrastination in general, talking about being in the wrong spot, but you're still, I mean, you're putting it off because, maybe there's that fear of failure, maybe there's that witch wound, fear of judgment. So, but how would you define procrastination as it relates to what you do? How do you define it?
I really like this question because for me, and this is something that has changed in the past few years, because I used to be that person, that was really very demanding of herself. And whenever I would procrastinate on something, I would guilt myself and I would kind of force myself to do things. And now I see procrastination as a tool. I think it's a very powerful tool because it indicates that there's something that's, for me, it's a sign of misalignment somewhere. Can be it can be as little as, okay, I'm procrastinating because today my energy, my general state is not aligned with this task and I'm not in the right place to do it today. Or it could be something as big as, I'm procrastinating on this because it's actually not aligned with my vision or my values or who I am as a person, impact that I want to have. For me, it's always so for me, the procrastination is much more like an invitation to ask yourself questions now. And there's different kinds of procrastination. I guess there's when you dive into it, there's the anxious procrastination. I'm procrastinating because there's fear down there. Like I'm afraid of, what's going to happen if I do this thing or if I do it wrong. Or, there's also procrastination because I just don't want to do this right now. I'd rather do something that's more fun and more, instant reward or something that's just more, that just gives me fulfillment, like instant fulfillment, I guess. And then there's also the perfectionist procrastination, where you're procrastinating because it's never good enough, it's never perfect enough, it's never exactly how it's supposed to be. But if you look at all those different kinds of procrastination, it's about asking yourself the question, what is this telling me right now? Why do I postpone this? Why do I not do it? Why do I fight it actually? And, if it's not fear, if it's not those things that I just said about like how, it's because I want it to be perfect, since it's never going to be perfect, then it's just never going to happen. I just keep procrastinating. Or if it's just because I'm afraid of, what's going to happen if I do it wrong, or if I do it, but there's also, okay, so deep down, what is this telling me? And yeah, there's really that question of alignment for me, of asking yourself, where is the misalignment?
Very well put. For sure that those are the one of the two biggest ones out of the five archetypes that exist there. So,
Mm-hmm.
what's your secret sauce for overcoming procrastination? And I mean, I know there's no one real silver bullet, but how do you do it, and how do you maybe guide others to do it?
Yeah. I think the first thing I really have to say is that there is no one size fits all. Um, and it comes back to what I was saying first. You have to know yourself first. This is the only way that you're going to be able to create a life where, there's less procrastination. You feel more aligned with yourself, your values, your dreams, and, all of those. And for me, when you know yourself, you're more able to understand what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you in terms of um, stopping the procrastination. So if I have to say what works for me in general, it's just really asking myself that question first. If I'm not doing this, if I'm fighting this, there's a reason. So why am I doing it? Is it just because I'm tired right now? And, my energy is just not the right one for this. And if that's the case, then there's probably another time where I can do it. Or maybe I can change and do another version of what I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't know, maybe I was supposed to record a long podcast episode I write a long article and I just really don't have the energy. I do want to share the idea, but maybe there's another way that I can share it. Or it's on that particular thing, it's about letting go of that I have to do the thing. Maybe it's not about the way, but the intention. And in that case, the intention is to share a certain idea. So maybe there's another way to do it. And then if it's something else like, uncomfortable things that I have to do, I guess it still starts with the question, why am I avoiding it? But if it comes down to, I'm afraid because, it scares me of, what people are going to think or what's going to happen if I get it wrong or what happens if I actually get it right? Because sometimes, that's the question as well. Then try to coach myself. I was going to say, yeah, coach myself into, okay, what's the smallest step that I can take, in the direction of doing that thing? And then how do I feel with that? And okay, what's the next step? How do I feel with that? And just try to go incrementally. Is that the word? Yeah. To kind of, approach it with less fear. Yeah. As for, just the general things that we have to do when kind of just that I'm someone who usually used to do that a lot, all of those things that are not fun to do. And there's just administrative things or like, I was going to say boring stuff, but you have to do it and just keep pushing it back. This, I just start by doing it first thing in the morning. That's just the thing. I've now I just put it at the top of my list and say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do one of those things first. And usually when I start by doing one, I kind of get fueled up and I just say, okay, let's just get it all done. And I just do the other things. And now that way it's done. And I can just go on with my day and do things that are more fulfilling. So yeah, I try to approach it that way. I try to think if there's any other thing, but I think it always starts with questioning myself and then step by step.
Well, that sounds like a very good thing to do and to start. So when you're talking with these women as well, so say let's say they're not procrastinating because obviously they've reached out to you, so I mean they've already made the first step. So when you're working with these women, I know that there's so much and there's so many different things that you have to take into consideration. But if you had to wrap up all that wisdom and all those tactics and all those ways that you can really start to move forward and be more fulfilled, what's something that, maybe any woman who's listening to this show today could do to start down that path of being more fulfilled?
I think the first thing I'm going to come back to this always is try to get to know yourself. Try to go deep with, sit down with everything. Start with the basic questions, how would I describe myself? How do I see myself? Who am I? What do I value? What energizes me? What do I like? What do I not like? And then from there, start to go deeper. What are my fears? What are the things that, I'm uncomfortable with? What are the things that keep me up at night? What are the things that I'm avoiding? You know, what are the things that make me feel uncomfortable? Who are the people that I feel uncomfortable with? And the opposite as well. Who are the people that I feel good with? What kind of relationships do I like having in my life? All of those questions. And what do I want my life to, what do I want my impact to be, around me in my life? How do I want to do that? How do I want to live my life? Like, how do I want to feel every day? living my life? What kind of atmosphere do I want to create around me in my house, in my home, in my family, all of those things. And then once you have answers to all of these, and I'm not saying it's the kind of work that you do once and then you have all the answers and it's not, it's there. It's the kind of work that you do and redo. And, it's something that's because it's ever changing. We're always changing and evolving. So the questions to those questions, the answers to those questions are they're gonna change over time. But I think the essence stays the same. There's something that stays the same. So the first step for me is trying to get closer to that essence of like, okay, who am I? You know, and then you can start, um, you know, thinking, okay, what do I need to change now in order to get a little bit closer to what I want, to the kind of life that I want? But I think the biggest step is that questioning of yourself. And so we always do that first. And then while you do that questioning, while you start knowing yourself and getting, deeper into who you are, then we can start working with, okay, taking action. What are we going to start? What can we actually take away from your life first? Because sometimes we tend to go to what can I start doing? What can I add into my day? What can I start doing into what kind of new routine can I do? All of those things. We forget that sometimes getting closer to what we want is also about taking things away from what we're doing today and like doing less. There are things that we have to let go. There are things that we have to stop doing. There are things that we have to change, transform, I would say. So then we move on to these, seeing, how we can address those. And then we start adding and saying, okay, so now, this is where I can, now that I have created the space, now I can add what I want into my life and what makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense. Just going back and talking about impact and how important impact is, and it's a main focal point for you and in your practice. What do you think is one of the, I don't know, maybe the proudest sort of impacts that you've made, or maybe that you've helped a client make over the years?
Yeah, I think when you just I'm gonna answer your question, but it just makes me think of something because you're talking about impact, and I think especially when you work with solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, those are people who start they launch something because they want to create something that doesn't exist yet or doesn't exist in the form that they envision it. So the question of impact is really central because usually if you start doing something, it's because you want to have a certain impact on the people that you're going to be doing this thing for, right? So definitely, yeah, this is a really big question when I work with my clients who are, solopreneurs. As for myself, I think the proudest impact I would say is seeing transformation in my clients and like seeing them go through journey and the transformation of when they first brought to me and when they leave or at some point when they even if they don't stop the coaching but they something changes in their life and you can see it. I can think of a client of mine was actually training to be a coach as well, and she was just starting and there were so many questions and she didn't know who she wanted to help, how, why. Everything was a bit unclear. And I could just remember her coming with a lot of questions and that sense of feeling disconnected and wanting to find some sort of, she actually, I think the way she had put it was that she wanted to reconnect with her spirituality. She wanted to find how her spirituality was going to show up in her life. And um, after our to start she made a lot of changes in her personal life. Actually, she let go of so much. And that's funny because that's what I was just saying before. It's that first thing she did was to let go of a lot of things. She let go of relationships that were not working for her. She let go of a job that was not working. And she made a lot of space. And then all of a sudden, the answers to the questions that she had kind of just started to appear. And at the end of work together, she was left with a sense of clarity and direction. She knew exactly where she had to go and what she had to do. And she felt so much more aligned with her purpose and her values. And that was just beautiful to watch, really.
Yeah, I think that those kinds of impacts are probably the more rewarding impacts. I mean, you can help a CEO or a multinational company owner. You can help him add another $200,000 to his wallet or 2 million or whatever it might be, right? But I think there's something more rewarding about that, sort of that personal
Yeah.
and fulfillment, right?
hmm Yeah, because it's a deep transformation. You can see the impact in that person's life, but you can also see how in her, like this person in turn is going to be able to impact other people and how that she's feeling much more aligned with who she is and why she's here and what she wants to do. And all of a sudden, she, in her own way, starts to impact people around her. And it's that ripple effect, that I was talking about at first, so how women really change the world around them. And then I'm guessing she's going to be, those people that she impacts are going to be able to impact other people in turn. And it's just that really beautiful seeing that wave of, people feeling just more fulfilled and more peace at ease, I guess, in their lives.
And since you've been working, I'm sure that you have lots of great plans. But what would you say is on the roadmap for you for the next year? Where do you see yourself in a year?
Hmm, that's a great question. I used to make a lot of plans. Now I do more visualizations. I'm more of a visualize how you want to feel person coach rather than visualize what you want to be doing. Because I feel like sometimes we have a certain image of what we should be doing in order to feel a certain way. So we focus on what we should be doing, but then when we get there, it doesn't really match what we want it to feel. So I try to focus on. So I will answer the question what do I want to feel in a year, if that's okay, because this I have the answer to. But I would say I just want to feel. I think serene is the word in my own work. I had a little girl 2 years ago, and the first 2 years was really focused on her. So I kind of stopped a lot of my work and I just kept just a few things going for the most part of those first 2 years of my daughter. And I'm just reconnecting now with my work and all of the activities that I want to do. And I'm just trying to get to that sense of balance between being the mom that I want to be, being there for my daughter, being able to have really that quality time with my family, but at the same time being fulfilled with the work that I do and the impact that I have. So in a year, I would really like to have created that routine that enables me to feel that balance and keep that peace of loving what I do and not feeling like it's a burden, because sometimes I think, and that's really a big thing for entrepreneurs as well, especially for solopreneurs, I know, is that you're really excited by what you do, but then at some point the excitement can turn into a burnout if you just let it take over too much. And so I'm just trying, because I know what it feels like. I know what it is because I've been through that. I just want to be able to create a sustainable sense of balance between the life that I wasn't want to live as, a mom and a partner and, that time with my family and my job. because the two are things that are really, really important for me. I get a lot of joy from what I do, for my work and everything, but I also get a lot of fulfillment from being a mom, and I just want those two to work out in the best way. So I just want to. It's really about maintaining that peace for me.
That's a very good insight there, and actually, it raises another interesting question. On what's your opinion on this? When people start saying, I want to make a business, or I want to make an oftentimes we say that you need to find something that you kind of enjoy doing and do that. But then other people say that, oh, no, 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 you never, ever, ever try to, make a business out of something you enjoy because you'll wind up ruining it. And so where do you fall on that side?
That's a good question. I think, I guess it's all in the balance of things. You can keep enjoying something and having it be your job if you work really, really well on maintaining boundaries, and that you have to know for yourself, because we don't all have the same ones, but you have to know what your boundaries are and where your limit is, so that it stays something that you enjoy, and it stays something that brings you that sense of fulfillment and impact, without it crossing over to the other side of being something that's just too much, because that's true. You end up not loving it anymore. And I think this is what the entrepreneur's burnout is when you cross over, and it becomes something that puts pressure on you, and it's just about you know getting to some kind of finish line that keeps moving further and further and further away. And yeah, I think that's really the risk. For me, there's a way. I feel like there is a way, but it takes work. It takes work every day to stay aware of, okay, this is the limit, and I have to be 150% aware of the where I am on that limit, on that line, so that I don't cross it, and so that it keeps being that thing that I like, that thing that I love doing, and it does not become that burden or that pressure. But I can also understand people who say, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to keep that balance. So I'd rather just keep what I love as a hobby or an occupation that I have outside of work, and keep work something completely separate and not something that I'm that passionate about. I can understand that. And I definitely think that for some people, that might be the answer. That might be the key to creating that life where you feel fulfilled and at peace. But personally, I tried, and I feel like having being disconnected from that sense of passion and purpose in my work is not sustainable for me. So it's about that question. Again, it comes back to knowing yourself. Are you able to sustain a job where there's no sense of passion or, purpose, and you're just doing it because, it's a paycheck at the end of the month? And for some people, it might be, yes, I'm completely able to do that, and that's perfectly fine. For me, I learned over the years that it's not the case. But I think it comes from that. It starts there. What kind of person are you on that subject? And then if you decide that you want to have something that's a passion and a purpose, and you want to work with that, then it's about finding that balance, and it's about asking yourself the right questions and having the discipline, I guess, too. Because the thing is, it can be vicious, I guess, in a way, because, you're doing something that you love. So you don't see it at first. You don't see the moment when you start crossing over, because, I really love doing this. So I'm just going to push for 1 more hour or 2 more hours where, I'm going to lose a little bit of sleep this week because I really want to finish this. And then it becomes 2 weeks and 3 weeks and a month. And now all of a sudden it's been 4 months and you haven't been enjoying your work anymore. And you're starting to be really exhausted. And so I think it's really that self-awareness and that checking in with yourself every day so that you're not missing a moment where you have to be like, okay, I have to adjust some things now because I'm going in the wrong direction right
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for those insights. We are coming up close to the top of the hour here. Is there anything that you feel I should have asked but I didn't ask, or maybe anything that we should have covered but we didn't cover today?
Well, in the spirit of talking about procrastination, since I was talking about how, women and especially women entrepreneurs can create a life where they feel peaceful and powerful at the same time, and how, where they feel fulfilled and at peace. I'm guessing something that I want to approach is some of the reasons why, for me, I think some women procrastinate. And maybe that's the beginning of an answer as to how, we can start approaching that question of procrastination as women entrepreneurs. And I think when I was talking about misalignment, the world where we live in now, there's a big expectation of productivity. And, also there's a big expectation of, women can do it all. And I think there's some nuance um, to be, said here, because we can do it all, but maybe not all at the same time, maybe not all with the same intensity. It's okay that, in most families, women are still doing a lot at home and juggling this with work and, responsibilities, especially when you work from home and when, the, the boundary between work and home is not as clear as it is when you go into the office and work for a company and come back home. And it's okay to not respond to that expectation of being 100% it's not even being 100% because you can be 100%, but 100% of what you set yourself to do. It's not 100% of what other people expect from you. And it's okay that the same thing cannot be expected from a mom who works from home and takes care of, the house and the kids and everything, and also has her business, and someone who is able to just go into work in the morning, come back in the evening, has, I don't know, some help at home with the kids and the cleaning and the cooking and everything. And it's okay not set the same expectations for yourself. And it's because of this, procrastination can be, as I said, can be a tool that, shows you maybe it's not about you being lazy. It's not about you not wanting to do stuff, but it's about, where did you put the expectation? Did you put it too high? And maybe this is the answer that this procrastination is trying to get you to understand, that, you're not setting the right expectations for yourself. And it's okay to lower the expectations as long as it's still aligned with the life that you want to live and the things that you value. And there's also a big thing for me to be said about how we're taught to ignore a lot about ourselves, ignore, our intuition, ignore our vision, our bodies sometimes tell us things that we ignore. We've been taught that, it's secondary. We have to keep going. But as women, there is, can I say, cyclical nature? Yeah, is that a word? Yeah. We have a lot of cycles that we're very influenced by. We have our menstrual cycles. There's the cycle of, like, if you trust you choose to believe in all of this, there's a, the cycle of the moon and everything. And as women, we're very, very connected to all of those cycles. And those can also have a big impact on why certain things can seem harder to do and why we procrastinate on certain things at some point. And I think there's there's a big there's a lot to be learned by learning to listen to all of those, learning to come back to all of those little voices and signs that our bodies and our intuition and our nature as women can, tell us, I guess. So yeah, I just wanted to add this little thing.
No, thank you so much for adding that. I mean, that's seems like pretty actionable steps. The first one is knowing yourself, by asking yourself the right questions and figuring out the whys or what's causing it. But then once you know yourself, then to continue that by paying attention to I guess the signs and the other signals that you're getting at that time as well. I mean,
Exactly.
you wouldn't want to learn all the road signs, right? And then, you just drive down the road and you're not reading them anymore. You're not paying attention to them. So that makes a lot of
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly. That's a great metaphor.
All right. Well, just before we wrap things up here, Sarah, is what's the best way that our listeners could reach out to you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Bloom in Serenity with underscores in between the words, Bloom in Serenity. You can actually sign up there for a fulfillment and serenity roadmap that I'm giving you all. So you could start with that. I think it's just a reminder of a few things that are really important when you start questioning yourself, on how do I get to a life that's more that looks more like the life I want to live. And yeah, so you can find me on there. My website is Sarah to Coach, which is in French, but there's an English version there, so you can also reach me there. Learn about everything that I do. But I guess the best way to just get in touch with me is to find me on Instagram. I read all the messages, I answer to everything, and I'll be really happy to connect with you there. So,
Okay. Well, and to all the listeners, don't worry. We will be putting that in the show description as well. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show today. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And, just remember, if you can't find that inspiration or motivation for yourself today, maybe just be that inspiration or motivation for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.